I've been teaching Spanish from Spain for more than 1,000 hours, and I am distilling my experience in this video to show you what works and what doesn't to learn Spanish from Spain fast, saving you years of study. My name is Jorge, I'm from Spain, I speak 5 languages, and I spend most of my days teaching Spanish from Spain and learning languages. So, what works and what doesn't work based on my experience teaching? To learn Spanish from Spain, it doesn't work to have the growth mindset that we will see in a moment. It doesn't work to rely excessively in learning apps. And it doesn't work to have a grammar first method when learning the language. So let's see one of each of them. What is the growth mindset? The growth mindset is, to some extent, I need perfect Spanish before I speak. This is incorrect because, first of all, perfect Spanish is not achievable because even native speakers, we make mistakes. We don't know all the words of all the different dialects, and there are many. And we are not going to progress as a learner of a new language if we don't speak. So this mindset can slow down your progress, make it excessively difficult and less enjoyable. So we need to change this mindset to this type of mindset. I want to understand and be understood. We drop the perfectionism of before, and now we just focus on the main purpose of language, which is communication. When I go to a cafeteria, restaurant, or a social event, my goal is that people understand me when I speak in Spanish and they understand me. That's the whole thing. Next problem, learning apps. Learning apps by itself is not a problem. Relying excessively on learning apps, it's a problem. That's because learning apps are made in a way that your success learning a language fast is not aligned with their goals, because they usually prefer to have you a long time in the platform, preferably paying for a subscription. So what they look for is for people that learn forever. They get much more money if you are subscribed for 3 years than if you are for 3 months. Second problem of learning apps, they want to be scalable, be used by hundreds of thousands or millions of people. This creates a problem because every time I've seen that people want to create apps to scale learning languages, they usually eliminate a very important part of the process of learning a language, which is as simple but as essential as speaking with humans. We need to speak with humans to learn the language. We need to listen and speak. Speaking with an AI is not the same AI. And anyway, people don't learn a language to speak with an AI. They learn it to speak with another human. On top of that, it's much more difficult to speak with a human because an AI is not going to make fun of you, or is not going to reject you, or you are not exposed to this possibility of embarrassment, which is to some extent, and in the case of Spanish from Spain, it's very commonly false. People in Spain, they are very happy to hear you speaking in Spanish, even if it's broken or you are a beginner, it doesn't matter. They are probably very happy to speak in Spanish with a learner. And these are the problems that happen when you rely excessively on learning apps. You don't speak enough with other people, and the process is not made to be fast, but long. I put here Duolingo because it's the more common, but this problem happens in many apps. And some apps are different, and I will tell you these apps so you can practice. By the way, another problem of Duolingo is that it teaches Latin American Spanish, not Spanish from Spain. Next common problem, relying on grammar first methods. So grammar first methods are those that we mainly learned at school. If we, for example, at school you were learning Spanish or French or English, you probably went through these methods. So there is a big class with many people, we all have books, and we learn rules of grammar, lists of vocabulary, and we minimize how much speaking and listening we do, because again, you cannot do that with 30 people or 20 people in a good situation, in a good way. So what happens with this is, first of all, it has created the big lie that many people believe, that to speak a language in a decent level, you will need many years of study, maybe a decade. That's not true, as we will see after. It's super common, not only the schools do this, but many academia, language academias, and online tutors and tutors in general follow this methodology. And the main problem of this methodology is that it has the wrong focus. And what do I mean by this is that all these aspects that we see inside of the circle, listening, speaking, reading, vocabulary, and many others, are parts of the language. One problem with this method is that it's focused excessively on some aspects only, like grammar, and not enough in others like speaking and listening. There is some writing, which is good, there is some reading, which is good, but there is way too much grammar. And by the way, grammar is something that, yes, you can learn it, and it's a very good shortcut to understand things faster, but our brains already recognize patterns of grammar. Like, for example, many children, or some children that speak English better than I do, because I am not a native speaker, but they are, and I probably studied more English grammar than them. That's because the brains are already made to understand the grammar and see these patterns in the language. So you can listen and speak and read and already learn grammar in a passive way, but if you study grammar itself, that's a shortcut to learn the rules of grammar. So there are other ways to do this, like Aviv did. Aviv is a tech lead that is planning to move to Spain soon. And he barely knew in Spanish when I met him, and after a few months, as you can see here in what he wrote, he was able to speak for many hours with native speakers from Spain and also from Latin America. And this is completely achievable by many people. And we will see exactly what Aviv did with me to achieve these goals. If you want to achieve similar results like those of Aviv, you can work with me. There is a link in the description to book a call, and we can work together for 3 months in a quite intense way. We will see how to get you to survive as Spanish or to improve your Spanish in a massive way. So now, finally, what works when learning Spanish from Spain? In reality, any language, I would say. So we need these two components that I have identified based on my experience: learning consistency and linguistic immersion. If it sounds like something very weird, we are going to see it now. So learning consistency, we can see these two examples. They are actually true people, so person A and person B, but I am not going to say the name of person A. Person B could be someone like Aviv that we just saw. So, but let's get the idea that these are real cases or common patterns. among learners. So person A practices Spanish once or twice per week for 10 years. On the contrary, person B practices Spanish almost daily for 3 to 9 months. The shocking part about this, and this is the response to the big lie we saw before, is that both of them may have similar Spanish levels at the end of the period, 10 years or 3 to 9 months. Or even person B may have a higher level of fluency and confidence. Why is this? Because many people think the big lie, believe in the big lie that you need many years, and they decide to maybe take practice once or twice and see in the long term, maybe in 10 years, I will be able to speak Spanish confidently. But that's not efficient at all. So it's much more efficient to focus all this practice of those 10 years in 3 to 9 months and get those results much faster, 10 times sooner. And because if you practice once or twice per week, I am including, for example, lessons with a tutor, but also other types of practice outside of those type of lessons. If you do this once or twice per week, you are going to forget from 1 week to the next one. If you practice 1 hour, 2 hours, and then you don't practice again until the following week, you forget a big part, so you need to practice again, and you get stuck or progress very slowly. And how do you practice almost daily? If you have, as we say here, a job and a family, for example, or you have many responsibilities, that's a valid objection. So instead of considering like traditionally studying a language, we are going to focus on linguistic immersion. This is how we are going to achieve a lot of practice without disrupting your schedule. So linguistic immersion is just asking yourself, how much Spanish can you practice during your day without changing your schedule? So what am I doing in English nowadays that I could be doing in Spanish? For example, do you read in English every day? Maybe you read fiction novels. Maybe you can read in Spanish. Do you watch shows on Netflix? Maybe you can do it in Spanish, etc. So maybe you are commuting to work, and during the commuting you can listen to podcasts in Spanish. So in this way you are constantly or very often learning Spanish. And you can get as creative as you want with this. Here I wrote some ideas, reading in Spanish, as we said, watching shows in Spanish with Netflix or Lingopie. By the way, Lingopie is made specifically to learn languages, and you can click on the subtitles there to give you the translation of the shows that you are watching. YouTube videos, journal in Spanish, you can do it writing or recording audios. Recording audios is very good because then you can hear yourself again after weeks and see your progress. Playing video games, for example, one of my clients like to play a video game called Rainbow Six Siege, and I helped him find a Discord where he could talk with the Spaniards to play that video game that he liked. So he was doing the same he used to do while learning Spanish because he was at the same time speaking with them. You can train your algorithms. This worked very well with Aviv for Spanish content. So in Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and then you can see many things you will learn in Spanish. You will see things about the Spanish culture, and you will see many things that in fact you will not learn, for example, with the grammar first method, because it rarely includes slang or memes or many references to culture. Listening to podcasts when commuting, for example, thinking Spanish. So if inside of your head you are all the time or as much as possible thinking in Spanish, you are practicing it and you are wondering, how could I say this in Spanish? Or I think I miss some grammar rule or something because it sounds strange what I am saying. That's a great thing to do. look for Spaniards in your area, even if you are not in Spain. Probably in your city there are some Spaniards or Mexicans or Colombians. Here you can use, for example, Facebook or Meetup or ask for local events. And if not, you can also meet Spaniards online. Tandem and HelloTalk are two apps that are very useful in this case to learn, because you create your profile and some people will want to learn the language you speak, maybe English or grammar or German or French, and you will want to learn the language they speak, Spanish. So you can practice 15 minutes in one language, 15 minutes in another language, texting, sending audios, or calling. And you can continue thinking about more ideas. Just think, what do I do in my day, in my schedule? Could I do that in Spanish? And then practicing is going to be much easier and you are going to do it more often and progress faster. Again, if you want to work with me for the next 3 months, you can book a call in the link in the description. There is a link and you can book a call with me. And hasta pronto.